Hey, Ken Johnson here with Great Wave Communications, and we're continuing our series of interviewing different folks with a connection to Conneaut or Ashtabula County who've gone on and done amazing things and really become leaders in their field, kind of inspire the rest of us to think big, and especially for our young people that are still in school. And the privilege a couple years ago of meeting Mr. Ray Fogg, and today we're up in Cleveland and have the honor to meet with Mr. Fogg and get a chance to get a feel for his connection to Northeast Ohio and specifically the Conneaut area. Did you go into the military before or after college?
No, I went into the military after and had an absolutely great time. Right out of college, I worked for the Athens County engineer and his engineering department and had an opportunity to put a lot of road surveys into place there. And then out of that, then I went in and had absolutely a great job in the service as a base engineer in Albany, Georgia, Turner Air Force Base. Absolutely wonderful job. Some 200 employees I was responsible for, the fire department and maintenance and all the buildings that existed in a typical Air Force base. Great job.
So how is it that a civil engineer comes out of the military knowing how to fly an airplane?
Well, buddies were, of course, fighter pilots.
Okay.
And they said, well, if you'll get an airplane, we'll teach you how to fly. So I bought an old Taylorcraft, which I guess wasn't too old at that point in time, a fabric tail dragger, Taylorcraft, very similar to a Piper Cub. And they taught me how to fly it, except I will remember that they were fighter pilots, so they taught me how to do a lot of things in that airplane that I shouldn't know how to do, but it ended up being very worthwhile getting trained by my fighter pilot buddies.
How long were you in the military?
I just stayed in the military, I think, 3 years.
Okay. So when you got out of that, how long before you started into Fogg Builders?
Well, I came out of there and because of the association of things that was there, a company called Lurie Engineering, which was building B-52 hangars all over the world, hired me, and I took over the supervision of the building of those hangars all over the world and worked for them building those B-52 hangars, which is why I became so involved with metal buildings, because the hangars were all metal buildings. And I decided that when I finally wanted to move on, that I would go and find who had the best metal building, and I thought it was Armco Steel out of Ohio, and so went to them and asked for a dealership.
Excellent. A lot of people go to college, and then in your case, you go into the military, you come out and get a job. College is a forgotten thing, but you certainly haven't forgotten your connection to OU.
I have had many opportunities down there. I did serve on their foundation board for a number of years. Also served, and I still serve on the foundation board as a emeriti, but I serve continually on the board of visitors of the engineering school, and I serve on the board of the civil engineering thing, and now I'm going to attend the first thing of an organization out of OU called ORIGHT, which is primarily highway work and works a lot with the Department of Highways in Ohio.
So how many years have you been involved in the university as a layman on the board and advising in the engineering school?
Oh, I don't know, at least 20, maybe more than 20 years, something like that.
You were honored by the university recently with an honorary doctorate.
Yeah.
How exciting was that?
Well, that was quite an experience to be honored with an honorary doctorate degree in which they acknowledged lots of different things that I had been involved in my life. It gave me an honorary doctorate degree. Tremendous thing to stand in front of better than 5,000 graduating people at the university and say a few words. And I really thought that was a tremendous opportunity.
Well, congratulations to you.
Thank you.
From everything I've read and seen, certainly well deserved in your support of that university. A number of people would think your background in construction and flying an airplane and things would, be a way to make a living and make a name for yourself. But actually, you were able to take some of those opportunities and the things that you learned to actually help some humanitarian causes. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did with the Honduras rescue efforts back in the 70s?
Yeah, let me start that by saying why I went there, which was I listened to my pastor of my local church say that there had been a severe hurricane hitting Honduras, and he was soliciting money for the helping the humanitarian efforts. I thought that was a little bit easy just to drop some money in the collection plate. So instead I said, well, I'm going to go find some high protein food, fill my airplane. I had bigger airplanes now than the little one I remember.
Yeah.
And fill my airplane full of food and fly it to Honduras. So I flew to Honduras, got there, and of course, with the airplane, they said, would I stay and do medical evac, which I did for a while. And I got to see, as I did the medical evac, how many villages had been destroyed completely. So I set up a system because there was gravel and sand all over every place, and I could get cement. So I set up a system of building houses out of flat slabs that I would just tilt up and make a house out of. And I was building back then about 4 or 5 houses a day in Honduras in about several different locations.
But it was mostly the villagers that were supplying the labor, is that?
Oh yeah, so it was all that. I was just showing them how to do it, and they did a great job. I think that what to me was most rewarding, there were 2 things. On one of the villages that I built up on a hill was a site, and they wanted to put their church up there, and I built them their church up there. But they had a bit of trouble because the village was part Catholic and part Protestant, and they wanted a church that they all were going to use, and there was a bit of trouble with that, but they said, no, that's the way we want it. One church for the whole village, so it was a great opportunity. But the other story, and I know I'm putting in maybe too many stories, is that while finishing up some work there in Honduras, a tremendous earthquake in the 7s numbers happened over in Guatemala. And I quickly looked around the villages that I'd built in Honduras, and damage there was very light. So I told them in the villages I was going to go to Guatemala the next day and see what I could do over there to help. And that night, over 100 men showed up at where I was staying in Honduras and said, well, you taught us how to build, you'll need us, we're going with you. So I went into Guatemala with 100 men, and we built, and that isn't quite correct, but we built 35,000 homes.
Wow.
in Guatemala. Let me correct, we built the system to allow the people to build the houses.
Right.
We built the factories that made the concrete blocks and those kinds of things.
I was reading an article about that, and it sounded like there was a close call with one landing. What about that story?
Well, there was a close call in that case because the runway had split due to the earthquake, and but I did get in that one. But I want to go back to Honduras when I was evacuating children, and it really was tough because I would fly in, and I had stopped taking an interpreter with me to help me in my Spanish because I could put more kids in the airplanes, and it was tough because they always had more people than I could fit in the airplane.
Right.
And so I kept putting kids in the airplane, and I realized I really was going to have trouble because I didn't speak Spanish. So I made the women all tie a tag onto the toe of the children, so when I got to where I was taking them, I could tell them who it was.
Yeah.
Because many of them didn't speak. They were very small children. But I overloaded one time with kids in the airplane and taking off. He hit the branches of a tree and couldn't collapse my gear on the airplane because I had a tree hung up
Your landing gear.
in my landing gear. But we did make it out and finally come over and land in San Pedro Sula. But that was a close one.